Hey everyone, what's going on? Mark here from TST Industries, back in the garage, and behind me I have our 2024 Yamaha MT-09, and in this video, Bart will be guiding you through the installation process of our TST Industries Elite-1 Fender Eliminator for the 2024 and up Yamaha MT-09. Now this is the 4th generation MT-09 in their lineage. With that came a complete redesign, and due to the redesign, we had to head back to the drawing board and design some new Fender Eliminator options that we made available for you. Now, as the moniker Elite-1 suggests, it is just that. It is elite. It is the premier offering in our Fender Eliminator options, and that is made up of undertail closeouts that cover up the holes left behind by removal of your OEM Fender and brackets of your choice. Now, for this particular model, we do have 3 bracket options in 2 mounting locations. We have our high mount Fender Eliminator options, and with that, there are 2 brackets available with our adjustable bracket that is a CNC machined anodized aluminum, fully adjustable assembly. And then of course, our stationary fixed high bracket that is a laser cut and bent steel bracket that is powder coated black. But if you are looking for something a little bit more sleek and hidden, we do obviously offer a different mounting location, and that is our low mount bracket. Again, a laser cut and bent steel bracket that is powder coated black. All of these options include our undertail closeouts and the mounting hardware necessary to perform this installation. Now, when it comes to our undertail closeouts, this was a unique bike to design one for, as this is a 3-piece assembly. We do have our CNC machined and anodized black undertail closeouts that actually cover up the holes left behind from the mounting locations. And then we have this small sintered nylon wire closeout that covers up the hole left behind where your wires are routed on your OEM Fender. Now, all of our Elite-1 brackets include all of these options, but what they don't include by default is our license plate light or external signal options. And it is important to note that by removing your OEM Fender, you do lose those crucial components. We have modular solutions available for you, so you are only stuck buying exactly what you need and want, and you're not stuck paying for for items you may not use. So please be sure to check that out. We have our universal license plate light as well as our external signal solutions available for your purchasing pleasure. Now, all of these installation processes are pretty straightforward. The tools are listed in the title card, and Bart will guide you through the installation process from beginning to end without cutting any corners. And we do this so that you can avoid spending more money at the dealership or at a shop and become more familiar with working on your motorcycle. And in this video, Bart will be guiding you through the installation process of our Elite-1 high mount Fender Eliminator. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right in.
In the first step, we'll be removing the license plate off the bike. I like to save the OEM license plate hardware just in case we need to reuse it on the new deployment. After the license plate is off, we can go ahead and take off the seats. And now we will need to remove some of the quick fasteners off the bike here. We have 1, 2, 3 on each side. These are 1/4 turn. Use a Phillips screwdriver to pop them out. And then can grab the head and just pull out. Next, I will grab a 4mm Allen, and we will extract the following 2 fasteners. This one here, and this large head one here. This is a symmetrical bike in regards to these fasteners, so I will now do that on the other side. At this point, we will hop up here in the aft section. We have 2 push fasteners. Press down on the centers. That unlocks them. Once you extract them, you push the center back out. Now that's ready for reinsertion. These 2 fasteners will unlock this panel. This panel moves backwards to unclip and rolls out like that. Now we've exposed 2 additional fasteners we will have to take out. Total of 6 from the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All of these use a 4mm Allen. I will start here. Now the tail fairings are free to come out. They do have some interference geometry here between this panel and the tail light, so we'll need to be very careful. We'll move up front and get this rotated towards outboard direction, and that will slide this component backwards and disengage this locking feature from its window. Put that to the side, repeat the step on the other side. And now we have access to the fasteners for the fender. Before we go ahead and drop those fasteners, we need to unhook all of the electrical connections here, which are the signal connectors, which you see right here, white and black. And then there's one additional one going across the left side of the subframe to here. It's a gray connector. That is your license plate light. I'm gonna start here. I'm gonna pry up on the locking feature of the connector, pull this out, and I'll have it back here. These connectors can be done in place, or you could dislodge them like so. For ease of manipulation, press on this locking feature and that will unlock it, and then you withdraw the connector. Now we do have some cable management guides here in the way, so we will progressively remove the wires from those cable management positions. There is a tab that goes across from the right side to the left. These come out from under, and here you have the opposite from the left side to the right. Again, you just undo it like so. Now all of your wires are free here, and if we remove the fender, they just go down and out of the bottom hole. Now with the help of a 12mm socket, I will be removing these two fasteners from the fender. Same on the other side of the bike. Once I get to the last one, I will support the fender while I undo the fastener. Once that last screw is out, this is ready to come down. I'm going to feed the wires in from the outside, from the inside to the outside, making sure that they don't snag. And now our OEM fender's off. And the next step, we will be mounting the wiring hole closeout that you see here. Let's push in the centers on these fasteners here, extract them. This whole panel will move towards the rear of the bike to unlock these two slide clips from the windows. And as you can see, we have this tabbed feature here that will capture the center part of this fork. On the other side of that, we have a protrusion that is the exact geometry of this window. So you get it engaged like this and you press it down, and then you get that back in. Now, there are some features on here that we have to consider during the installation flow here. We do have these three hole centers. If you're running just a license plate light, you'll need to drill through here. If you're running a license plate light and signals, we will need to drill through here also, and then snip this out using a utility knife. Now I'm going to leave this off from this particular installation. We do have a separate video showing how to install signals with this setup, so that will be the details of these operations will be covered in that video. In this video, I will just show what to do if you choose to run a license plate light. So here we have the hole center that will need to be drilled out using a 3/16 inch drill bit. I'm going to do that now. Now the 3/16 inch drill bit, that size applies to our TST Industries license plate light. If you are using a different license plate light, you will need to adapt this hole size to that light. Now the reason why we don't send these pre-drilled is because they're supposed to close out the whole area, right? If you're using an integrated tail light and no external signals, or if you're using a different license plate mount like our low mount that fits here, then you want this just fully closed out. That's why this is completely sealed off in its as arrived state. So again, let's get this in place like I demonstrated before. and then get it locked in. And then we are going to replace the fasteners that keep it on. All right, next set of steps will involve the aluminum closeout pieces. You need to identify which side's which. The hole features go towards the rear of the bike. The TST Industries iconography goes towards the front. Now, you can technically swap them around, but you'll see right away that there are gaps. So you need to make sure that the geometry of the undertail follows here. And that's pretty easy to do. And the threaded bosses here go inboard of this whole location, where we will start fastening in the screws that held the OEM Fender in place. If you notice, I'm only installing the forwardmost fastener first. We will need to have a little bit of movement here. We'll need access to this slot. I'll do that on both sides. Now at this point in the video, we will fork slightly because we do have two different components that mount to this undertail closeout to make a Fender Eliminator. We have our standard, which is a static version. It is a stainless steel powder coated black bracket that mounts to this setup but stays in one orientation only. And then we have our Elite-1 adjustable, which is all aluminum components, beautifully anodized, and it is adjustable, so you unlock the hinges and you're able to adjust the angle at which your license plate hangs. This also matches the anodizing on the closeout, so it's a really nice pairing, but not everybody wants to go for it. However, we do need to take it from its as-arrived state, which is just a bunch of components, and build it into this configuration and then get it onto here. Once these two modules are in this form, the installation is fairly similar, so we're gonna breeze over this one really fast because it's very, very easy, and then we're gonna get a little bit more into detail on this one. So the next few steps will be demonstrating the installation with the static standard Fender Eliminator. We'll go through the installation of the license plate bracket on here, and the rest of the steps for the reassembly of all the other components will be at the end after we demonstrate how to use the Elite-1 adjustable. Our kit contains all the hardware necessary. We have 2 washers, 2 screws, and 2 nuts. The nuts will be placed flat face down in this slot here. That slot is the actual width of the nut, so this will be a toolless operation. Once we get the screw in, we've designed the actual geometry that accepts this nut to hold it in place as you turn the screw in. Let's go ahead and do this one side at a time. Place the washer on the screw, grab a 4mm Allen, and carefully go through that hole in the closeout so that you capture that nut. And we want to go in until the whole setup is not sloppy, not jiggling around all over the place, but we don't want to tighten up just yet. I'm going to repeat this on the other side of the bike. Still leaving a little bit of adjustability, but I'm going a little bit tighter on this connection. And now at this point, I will turn in the remaining 2 screws into the closeout. So I'm giving this a good amount of tightness. The OEM screws came out of the fender, still containing some Loctite on them. If you want to tighten these down using a torque wrench, use 18 foot-pounds. Now I'm going to center this bracket and turn it all the way into full tight. All right, now this point, if you're running a license plate light, it would be routed through the middle triangle and up through that wiring hole in the wiring hole closeout, up to the top, and then connected via the connection instruction later on in this video. Everything past this point is the reverse order of disassembly and will be shown later on in this video after we demonstrate how to install the Elite-1 Fender Eliminator adjustable. The Elite-1 adjustable module comes to you in a baggie as just a mass of parts. You have your mounting screws, assembly screws, and all the aluminum components. I'm gonna get rid of the mounting screws for now, and we're gonna pre-assemble this guy into the form that will go on the bike. To do that, we will use an 8mm open-ended box wrench, 3mm Allen, 4mm Allen, and it's a very good idea to use medium strength thread locking agent on the appropriate fasteners in this kit. All right, let's lay this out roughly the way we are going to install it together. We do have these hinge bosses that have a straight surface and a curved surface. The curved surface will go towards the rear of the bike. We're gonna lay these guys out like that. Now we have these L brackets that are bent on a 90-degree angle. However, when you lay them flat, they do have a slope to them. So they will end up like this. This is towards the rear of the bike. We'll have one washer and one of the M6x12 screws going through here, through this hole and into the hinge boss. That's going to happen on either side of this assembly. Then we have a countersunk screw, one for each side here that fits into one of these countersunk positions. For this particular kit, we are going to be mounting through the outermost hole. Then we have a flange nut that interfaces with this screw behind the L bracket, needing to put it on flange first. So we'll lay that here. And now we can begin the actual assembly. I like to get these onto these first. They do have a boss protrusion from that face that interfaces and locks with the slightly larger hole on the L bracket. This creates the hinge. Then we have our washer go on top of that, and we will apply a little bit of medium strength thread locking agent to this thread in order to protect it from loosening due to riding vibration. 4mm Allen. Just going to get it to the bottom, knowing that I will need to do a final lockdown when that gets on the bike. I'm going to repeat the steps here. It is very important that the actual hole on the L bracket and the boss protrusion become concentric and the hole fits on top of that protrusion. Otherwise, you will not have proper hinge action here. All right, we have two built. Now, we're going to fit the screw through the outermost hole, get that through the slot of this bracket, and like I said, flange first on that nut. Get that thread engaged using a 3mm Allen in the screw. We are going to get this nut tightened down almost all the way. We're going to leave a little bit of adjustability so that we could micro adjust while this is being installed onto the closeout without too much sloppiness, but you also don't want it too tight in a way that you'll create scratching in the surface by moving it. This feels good to me. Still have some movement. Let's go ahead and get the other one seated. When you are done with this step, Your assembly should look roughly like this. These may be a little loose, that's okay, but it should take this form. We still have some adjustability here in these guys, inboard to outboard, and we can move them around, no big deal. Before we go on with the assembly onto the bike, I am going to put a little bit of that medium strength Loctite in here and in here. Now we'll grab the mounting screws and transfer over to the bike. All right, so we left our closeout components loose on purpose so that we could get our fasteners in through the top to the bottom. We will insert our mounting screws like so. Do that on each side of the bike. The tool for this fastener will be a 5mm Allen. Now, we technically get in here with an L wrench, but I find it a lot easier to go through the top with a bowl type Allen key. This may be a little cumbersome for you guys that don't have really good tools, so you may need to remove the actual closeout pieces from the frame if you just can't get this accomplished with the tools I am listing. Most guys will be able to do it this way, and this is the preferred method, so let's go ahead with this. I'm gonna line the hinge bosses the way I described on our table section. Flat portion towards the front, curved portion towards the rear. And I'm going to get that bottomed out but not tightened. Do not tighten. At this point we will insert and thread up the second fastener on each one of these closeout pieces. And now we can go ahead and tighten those down. I'm giving these a good amount of tightness just by hand. These bolts did come out with some thread locking agent still left over on them, so they should be safe in this manner. If you want to make sure that they are safe from extraction, you could go and torque them to 18 foot-pounds. I am just going to adjust this slightly just so I could get the hinge bosses to align in a parallel fashion. Then I'm going to take a 10mm open-ended wrench, fit it onto a hinge boss, and then I'm going to tighten down on this bolted connection while the 10mm open-ended wrench keeps the faces of these hinge bosses parallel to each other and center plane of the bike, or the axis of this boss and that boss coaxial. All right, I've achieved adequate tightness, and now you could loosen the hinge screws, get this adjustment performed, and lock them back down. For now, I'm going to keep it here. I like to make my final adjustments when I have all of the equipment already on the bike, so we'll do a final adjustment after all the components are together and we have a license plate on here. This is a good time to run a license plate light if you are going to do so. If you are running a license plate light, and it is a TST Industries license plate light, the wiring goes on top here and then up through the hole we made in a previous step in that wiring hole closeout. This will come out on top exactly where the OEM wiring from the Fender was. I'm just going to leave it loosely in place here for now. Won't deal with this till a little bit later. I think we're good to go here. Let's go ahead and start getting our panels back on. The method to getting this panel back on successfully is to get this tab and this hole in place kind of at the same time. So what I like to do is first get this up on top of here and then rock it towards the rear like that. And then I'm gonna get this tab in between the undertail and the taillight. Once I have done that, this just kind of rotates back in place and it's very easy. Now, while this is happening, I have to keep mindful of making sure that the tabs that are along this edge interface with the windows in the undertail, and I have done that here. So this is good to go. We can replace the quarter turn fasteners in this panel so that it's self-captive for us. One more detail here I want to mention is that this panel, the black polypropylene piece, has a little tongue that protrudes from here. That goes up on top of our closeout. The closeout has a little shelf that keeps this whole panel from falling under. On the OEM setup, it kind of like rides up and down, but there's no reference on the OEM Fender to notice that it's out of place. Here with our setup, we wanted to make sure that it has some upward movement in case there's a force on it, but always falls down to this very flush and nice look. So I'm going to replace this last fastener here, and I'm going to go on to the other side. Now we can start getting these fasteners back in. We have two fasteners that do not have a flange, they're just straight fastener. One goes here and one goes here. The remaining three for each side do have a shoulder. Locations for these are here, here, and here. 4mm Allen performs the tightening on all these. If the license plate bracket is in your way to tighten this fastener, then you can just unscrew the hinge, move it to a different location, and then be able to tighten it down. I'm going to repeat the steps exactly on the other side. After this fastener is tightened up, let's go ahead and jump up top. I'll show you guys how to connect your license plate light to the bike, and then we'll be nearly done. We have one more panel to complete the tail here. It does have these sliding locks that have their receiving windows here in this area. They also have these tabs that go into these windows. Let's make sure that we align all this stuff and it slides together. When it all slides together well and the gaps are correct in the rear, these two locations will be concentric. Pop these fasteners back in, and that's the entire replacement of the bodywork. Now, we do have this wire coming out from our license plate light here. What I'd like to do is try to mimic the routing of the OEM components. So I'm gonna go under the taillight wire here, get into this cable management clip to the leftmost of it, follow this part of the harness down here, and now we need to make connection to the wires that come out of this plug. One way to do it is to slice off this tape that's holding it on. It's just regular electrical tape. Carefully cut through it. And if you remove that tape, this connector will come out. Now we can make use of these wires along with the posi-tap connectors that come with our license plate light, and that'll be an appropriate connection. We could also snip off a portion of the receiving connector, the mating connector on the fender. I know a lot of guys want to keep that stuff around in case they go to sell the bike and they need the OEM components. Most of us really just chuck that thing to the side and never use it again. So It's a nice plug and play connection later down the line, so you can also clip that off, make your connection to that portion, or you could connect into here, into the same wiring colors that I will give you for this plug. My methodology will be for the simplest and most standardized connection that I typically do, and that's to the license plate light circuit right upstream of its connector. Here we have the positive wire. It is a brown wire with a red trace. The negative wire, the ground wire, is black. Our posi-tap connectors look like this. You take off, you unscrew the larger cap, and that exposes the slit that the wire you are connecting into will fit into. Now this part of the connector has a little piercing element, and as you screw that on and thread it in to bottom, that piercing element will pierce the wire shielding and make your connection. Before I go into license plate light connection mode, I will just attach both of these. Now I will stagger them. If they're right next to each other, they bunch up. If you offset them a little bit, they create a little bit less bulk and are easier to deal with. Same method, get it down to the bottom. Now that makes the connection. Now you have these smaller caps here. You will have to unscrew them one at a time. It's a good idea to have a towel or something here, or a tray. These things are very small and cumbersome. If you drop one, it's a nightmare to find it in there. I just took off the cap to the black wire, so I'm going to match that with my black wire from our license plate light. I'm going to insert it through the non-threaded end. It protrudes past the threads, and I will now thread this on here while maintaining positive pressure on that wire so that it doesn't come out as I pressurize it against its mating surface. When I bottom that out and tighten it, I'll give it a tug test. If it doesn't come out, it's good. Repeat the steps on the other side. Tug test pass. Power it on. License plate light is in fact lit up. So we are good to proceed to bulk distribution and routing. I like to fold this under like so. And then we do have excess here. Just S-fold it like this and place it under this bundle of wires. And that'll be held in place for you, nice and neat. Or you could use some cable ties. Choice is yours. I think this is appropriate for what we're doing here. These connectors here will be used in a signal installation that is part of another video we have. All right, so that'll be that for this portion. Now I'll replace the seats. All right, the last remaining step here is to install our license plate on the bike. I'm going to do this with the hardware that I took off our OEM setup. So our license plate light has this strip here. If you take off the red masking, it exposes 3M high bond adhesive. You can adhere that to the bottom side of your license plate if you want to feel more secure about your license plate light there. I typically just leave it in place, and the pressure between the license plate and the license plate bracket takes care of all of it. All right, let's center the license plate light, turn it to full tightness. Now the license plate is on. Let's quickly talk about the position of the license plate on the bike. If you undo the hinge screws, you're able to adjust this. Now this doesn't do you much good, it's facing the tire. This will most likely contact the tire in long suspension travel. So you want to make sure that you're safe within the range that is acceptable, and adjust this to your liking. I like this angle. I'm just going to tighten it down here. One other thing I wanted to mention is that if you don't like typical hardware that license plates are bolted on with, we do sell these nice anodized washers. For this presentation, I have a silver one here, but we do have other anodized colors. They complement the bike very nicely, and you get a color theme going, and makes it a little bit nicer. All right, at this point, I want to give it one more test, make sure our license plate light is lit, and in fact it is. Everything is looking smooth, properly installed. All the fasteners are back in, so this installation is complete.
And there you have it. You have successfully installed our TST Elite-1 high mount fender eliminator on your all new 4th generation 2024 Yamaha MT-09. And by doing so, you've completely revamped the rear end of your bike. You've slimmed it down, you've saved some weight, and best of all, you brought some modern looks while retaining those important functions if you are one of those customers who opts for our license plate light and external pod signal solutions. Now, it is important to note, again, I have to reiterate, as I did in the intro, that by removing your OEM fender, you do lose the OEM turn signals and license plate light. But do not worry, as Bart went over and as I discussed in the intro, we have options available for those riders out there interested. If you found this video helpful, please feel free to give us a thumbs up. We'd really appreciate it. I want to give a special thank you to Bart for guiding you through this installation process. If you haven't already, please be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn the notification bell on. Now, if you want to find out more details on this kit, see some additional photos, or you're just ready to hit buy, you can do so at the link in our description or by visiting our website, tstindustries.com. And lastly, as always, feel free to stop by our social media pages, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all username TST Industries. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, you just want to say, hey, drop us a line, let us know where you're watching from, feel free to do so in the comment field below. We love to hear from you. For now, this has been Mark and Bart in the TST Garage. We appreciate you all. Ride safe. We'll see you next time.